Are you ready?
I am ready.
Wow. John Peckman, I'm very excited. John Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland. Where the red school is. Make a U-turn, park in front of this. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. If you have any. I always wonder what it was like.
Aren't you also supposed to say, hey, guys?
Oh, hey, guys. Hey, guys. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Hey, guys. Have your own podcast here in our beautiful studio. Dave will tell you how. What else? I think that's about it, right? That's what I say.
We have merch.
Oh yeah, we have merch. We have new mugs.
Oh.
Yeah, if you are a guest on here, you will receive a mug, but you can also purchase a mug. You can purchase shirts. We have a snowsuit on back order. Yeah,
Like
anyway.
the full full thing?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
No, I just
Like
made
the
that
kid
up.
from, what was that? The Christmas Story? I can't put
Yeah,
my
yeah.
arms down.
Yeah, we can say anything because I'm making it up. All right, we are here today. World's greatest dancer. One of the best physical comedians in show business. And also he plays music. And also can fit into, I've seen it, very small crawl spaces. I've seen it.
You have.
I have. It was uncanny. Mr. Chip Fenney. Finally, Chip is here.
I
Chip,
am here.
Everything's better when Chip is around.
Totally by accident. But
I know.
I am here.
It kind of was.
It was, was that serendipitous? Is that how that's supposed to work?
I think so. I actually had a last minute cancellation and I was not going to do a show today. And then I walk in and I see Chip and I'm like, snap, goes the trap. And here you are. There's no escape.
I got suckered in.
Yeah, it's beautiful. No, you were on the original list.
I was.
Yeah, you've always
I remember that text.
Yep. Well,
I saved it.
now I can cross you off the list now.
Yeah.
You know?
Never again.
I don't know about that. Let's see how it goes. Maybe, perhaps. You might be onto something. But Chip is among other things, primarily a sax player, correct? Wouldn't you say?
I would say, yes.
Right. But you've been known to play other instruments. I've seen it.
You have.
Yeah.
I've
Played entire gigs on bass, didn't you?
I have
One time.
in the past. I was officially a bass player in a band for a little while
Hey.
with a buddy of mine from high school.
Didn't you play an entire set?
Yeah, we've done a couple times when, the real bass player couldn't make it
Yeah.
for, a set or two or something.
It worked.
Yeah.
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 It's like a guitar but lower,
Yeah.
a bass. In case anyone doesn't know. We're here to educate also.
So that, I can kind of hit 2 and 4 in the right place on a kit.
Yep, I've seen it. Yep. Can play the electronic pads,
That too.
I've seen all of these things and more.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, where do you want to start? You're going to have to tell your life story.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? Some of this I don't know.
This actually true, yeah. So I was born and raised in Guilford. Funny story about this, actually.
I'm ready.
A very recent funny story. I don't know if it's funny. It's just slightly intriguing and annoying.
I'll be the judge of that.
So, born and raised in Guilford. Went to Guilford High. Blah blah blah.
Wow.
Technically, I'm in North Guilford, so I'm actually closer to like Durham than I am the center of Guilford.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can picture it.
So and I didn't realize this was a thing until I.
Wait a minute. Does Guilford extend to the shore?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So
Good.
yeah, I'm.
For us in Wallingford, all you are is the way to Hammonasset, on the way to
Yeah.
Hammonasset. That's it. That's all you are. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
So like I said, technically North Guilford. And it even says so like on my driver's license and on my vehicle registration. The reason I bring this up is this last week I went to renew my registration and put in your information, blah, blah, blah. I was doing it online and it wouldn't accept it. It's like, there's a problem with your address. You need to go and fill out change of address thing, go to this page and click.
And you're currently residing in Guilford.
I am
Okay.
still, we'll circle back to that.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
So yes, I'm still there or back there.
Sure. As far as your registration is concerned.
As far as my
you're
registration
Guilford.
is concerned,
Yeah.
that's where it is. But yes, I am physically there as well. But anyway, so I'm looking at the thing, and it's like, I put in North Guilford, blah, 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 just like it says. And
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
Wow.
What do you mean that doesn't work? It's been,
Yeah.
since I've owned a vehicle,
Sure.
it's been that.
Sure.
Since my father built the house
Yeah,
in
yeah.
1960
Yeah,
something.
what the hell? Yeah.
That's been
Yeah.
what it is. So that's what it says on my driver's license.
Right.
So something somewhere changed along the lines of DMV, whatever, and apparently they decided they don't need the north part anymore.
Oh, okay. Just making it more complicated for you.
So I had it was all of
Is it a different zip code? Maybe they
No,
just go by zip code?
that's all the same. Whatever the main 06437 plus the extended.
Don't use your real, okay.
Well, it's
Don't use your
Guilford,
real
it's
zip
not-
code.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want to have a breach here, security breach at the.
But yeah, that was all the same. It was just apparently you can't have the north part in there anymore. So I had to go to this other page on their website and fill out a change of address form or something.
Oh, brother.
And then that all of 5 minutes, and then I went back and clicked. And, okay, you're all set.
Yeah.
But it took me 20 minutes to figure that out because I kept going, no, that's right. What's wrong? This is right. There's nothing wrong with my address. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So all this time, when they did the automated system, they realized that saying North Guilford was just a local thing. It wasn't a legit thing.
Apparently.
We have that in Wallingford. There's like Yalesville, but
Right.
it's not. You can't address anything to Yalesville.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So.
these things happen.
But anyway, so yeah, that's born and raised there.
In Guilford. No
in
longer.
Guilford.
Yeah, right.
In the northern section.
Sure.
And then
Yeah, let me ask you this. So when you grow up in Guilford, when you tell people you're from North Guilford, what does that mean to Guilfordites? Is that like, oh, or is that ew, or is it just nothing? Does it mean something?
as with anybody else, it depends on who you're talking to.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you have the whole thing like during high school. There was you're in this part of town,
Sure. Yeah.
or you're in that part of.
Yeah.
So
what were you?
I was in.
You're closer to Durham. That's a tough call.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I put it as I was in the rednecky part because I was up in the woods versus down on the shoreline and
Gotcha.
Whatever.
Okay, I got
But,
you. So if this were the outsiders, you would be the greasers, and they would be the socias, kind of.
Yeah, I would. That makes
in terms
sense,
that most of us can understand.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
slightly. I've seen I've seen the outsiders like once.
It was just a
long
class
time ago.
warfare.
Yeah.
It's just
No, I
we're
get
the
it.
tough kids from the bad side of the tracks, and these are the good kids.
Yeah.
And that's the way.
I don't know if I was the tough kid.
Right.
I just happened to be
Sure.
in the woods,
Sure.
as opposed to near the shoreline,
Yeah.
in the center of town, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
So all the big historical aspects of Guilford are in, as you would expect,
Of course.
near the green
Yep.
and the churches and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
then it's spread out to
Yeah. Oh well. But there you are.
Yeah,
In
there I am.
Guilford.
So my dad, my mom and dad built a house. My dad literally bought a lot and had a house built. He built the house in.
Is that where you learned to do all this stuff? Kinda.
Yeah, just from.
That's exciting.
You know.
My dad couldn't open a carton of milk, so that's kind of cool, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm glad I had the dad I did, but that must be cool to have a dad that can do stuff.
Yeah, my dad was funny. He was he basically did whatever he needed to do. When he was a kid, his parents were older. So he was born in 31.
Wow.
1931.
Sure.
He had four siblings. I think he was the youngest. But anyway, he had, and his mother. He lost both his parents when he was pretty young.
Wow.
Actually, his mother I think died of, I think scarlet fever or something
Whoa.
wacky of
Yeah,
the
right.
time like
Right,
that.
sure, sure.
You know, and his father died of pneumonia, or maybe it was the other way around.
Yeah.
But still, you know, one of those things where nowadays, what do you mean you scarlet
Yeah,
fever?
no one dies
you
of
know?
scarlet fever.
Yeah. And then, so he was, even though he did have older siblings, he was pretty much on his own when he was like 12 or 13. You know, I remember we had discussions. You know, he wasn't a very good student school wise, because he would literally, he's like, well, I had to go hunting.
Right.
Well,
So-
what do you mean you had to go hunting? Well, I had to eat.
yeah, I had to eat. Yeah, I couldn't make it into school.
You know,
A
it was
di-
either go to school or eat. I chose to eat.
That's crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
and he joined the Air Force when he was 16,
Wow.
which you're not supposed to do, but he, you know, did a little.
Can you imagine?
Because he's like, I wanted
They have food there.
3 square meals.
Yeah.
You know.
That's crazy.
Um,
Yeah, this is when men were men. My dad too, just right out of high school. Sign me up. I'm
Yeah.
going. You know.
and but prior to that, you know, again, we're talking early, you know, mid 40s or while
Sure.
the war was going on. He ended up, you know, he bought a car when he was like 14, you know, because he needed to get around. He had to do
Sure.
this because, you know,
Sure.
that's what he had to do. And then
Crazy.
he was a little bitter with some of his siblings at the time. You know, he's like, well, you know, obviously they didn't. You'd think they would have
yeah.
helped him or whatever.
Right.
but
They
he
didn't
was
have to
pretty much-
kill every meal.
Yeah.
As you go.
So, you know, he went and lived with this other family because the guy gave him a job on his farm.
Sure.
You know, versus
Wow.
his older brother going, well, why don't you just come with me?
Yeah.
For,
Yeah.
I don't know why that didn't happen.
Crazy.
So he had 2 older brothers. The older of the 2 was in World War II. He actually passed away out there from like a Jeep accident or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, he just basically learned, you know, he learned how to be a mechanic, he
Sure.
learned how to be a carpenter,
Sure.
whatever, because it's like, oh, I need a job. You got to? Okay, I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then,
But we kind of do that in our own funny little way.
yeah, you
You
know. So, yeah, I grew up with that, and there was another funny thing was, you know, I was the helper. You know, as soon as, can you hold this? Okay, great, we're
Sure.
going to work.
Yeah.
You know, so I was 5. Pass me the 9/16. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I got really good at holding the flashlight in the right place.
Sure.
What are you doing? Pointing it over there? I'll just see I'm working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom.
And then they invented and he never spoke to you again. That was it. He had no use for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And it was funny when somewhere in my teens, my dad and I were talking about, well, yeah, you know, you helped me out when it was this and that and the other thing. And for some reason, my mom was not oblivious, but she just didn't grasp the timeline of when I officially started working with my father.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't start working with your dad until a couple of years ago. And maybe she was thinking like in his official job, which
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
he used to do like drop ceilings and things like that. So we'd go and do those jobs. But I was like, what are you talking about? There's
I was there.
all the stuff around the house. You know, we built this thing or we made this ditch or whatever. And there's a Polaroid somewhere of me, I think I was 7,
Yeah. Right.
on the roof
Yeah. Right.
with the hard hat and the little apron.
And your mom took the picture. You're like, Ma, you took this picture. Don't you remember?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much how I grew up. It got to the point where like my neighbors, you know, we had a handful of kids that were all pretty much the same age, were all in the same grade or
Yeah.
a year or 2 apart. So that was our little neighborhood gang, you know. So they, you know, I'd get the phone call, hey, can you come over and play, or do you have to like put an addition on your house?
Yeah. Right. Right. So that's the joke.
Yeah, so that was the ongoing thing of, you know, but yeah, that's where I know a little bit about a lot
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff.
That's great.
So just enough to kind of get myself in trouble,
Well.
and enough that I'm still doing it now.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
So, but anyway, so to steer this more toward the musical side of things.
Yeah.
So was it I was lucky in the Guilford system. We had a pretty supportive program as far as the arts go. So like 4th grade, when I was in 4th grade, they had like I think it was the sixth grade band come around and do like the presentations of here's the band and here's here's Joey playing the saxophone.
Yeah, be like Joey next year or whatever.
Yeah, and that was part of it. Joe Solano was his name. I forget what song he played, but something. He was just standing up in front of the band playing the alto
Tequila
sax.
or something.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was like a concert bandy kind of thing. And for whatever reason, that sound kind of stuck in my head. And then I think around the same time, he was playing alto, but I just knew it was a saxophone at that point.
Sure.
Then around the same time is when I found out that the theme for the Pink Panther was a saxophone.
Sure.
And I liked I liked the cartoon, but I also liked the tune itself.
I like the color pink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my mind, saxophone. I like that. So when they said, "What do you want to play?" I said, "Saxophone."
Yeah.
And then I kind of got shafted. So the guy who was the middle school band director at the time was the one who was asking, "What do you want to play?"
Sure.
And I should have asked him why, like years later, because we became friends. But at the time, he said, "Well, why don't you start on clarinet, and then later you can switch, and you'll be able to play both." And I went, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about
the reality is he just needed clarinet player.
Maybe, or maybe because I still am kind of small, stature-wise. But maybe he didn't think my hands would fit around a saxophone or something. That possibly could have been stated, but I didn't catch it if it was.
How related are the fingerings? I don't know.
They're very close.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple of little things. They're close enough to be like real quick explanation.
Yeah, sure.
Overtone series wise.
Okay, sure.
Without getting too technical.
Yeah.
The saxophone follows the same overtones as like a trumpet or a trombone or just general like guitar or whatever, that whole thing. Because of the physics of the shape of the instrument being well, it's a conical instrument closed at one end, and that creates this specific overtone series, which is the same as guitar, piano, or trumpet, or blah, blah, blah. The clarinet is cylindrical and closed at one end, which sets up a different overtone series or for some reason.
Wow.
So, like the nodes or whatever.
And it's because it's not curved like a sax? Or
no,
whatever?
it's just because it's not conical.
Oh, interesting.
So cone-shaped versus just a cylinder.
Wow.
Parallel.
Okay.
Whatever. But anyway, so literally the bottom half or the top half.
Yeah.
I'll say half. A good portion of the top part of the clarinet is exactly the same fingerings as a saxophone.
Okay.
When you have your thumb on the little button.
Okay.
When you have your thumb off the button, say this note with these three fingers is a fifth, actually technically a 12th lower. So like on a piano, you have, here's that note, and it looks the same up here. It's the same note. It's just an octave higher or lower.
Yep.
Saxophone works the same way. Here's this note. I push the button. It comes out an octave higher.
Oh, okay.
On the clarinet, here's this note. I push the button.
And it
comes
half,
out a 12th higher. So half of the clarinet is very much the same as saxophone, and the other half is a fifth off.
Yeah.
So once you get used to it, it's fine. But
do you play clarinet at all still?
A
little bit.
So I'm getting to that story. Yeah. So anyway, started out with clarinet just because I wanted to play something, and I wasn't allowed.
And the mouthpiece
similar,
close enough
that when you're doing it initially, you don't know any better than whatever. But as you progress,
an oboe would be different because it's double reed.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So
oboe
you're in the
and
zone.
Bassoon
So
are different. But
you're in the zone.
Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah.
And then again, as you progress, if you want to, really dive into it, there's little particulars that are drastically different. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I wanted to play something, so I started on clarinet, and immediately.
And there you are. The first thing you're trying to figure out is. You're trying to figure out.
I don't even know if I did that because I think I was just more annoyed at this isn't really what I want to be. This isn't the
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't realize it, but it was just this isn't the sound that I want to come out of this thing I'm
Sure.
playing.
Sure.
And I remember in like I mentioned before, we had a pretty supportive arts program. So we had like summer band programs. So there was like a fifth grade summer band you could join. And I remember I did that the first year, right? So the summer of right before I became a fifth grader. And it was okay. And then the next summer I did it, and I was just even more annoyed that I was still playing the clarinet. And I didn't think of switching to saxophone because I just assumed that I wasn't allowed to for whatever reason. I didn't actually ask. I just said,
Sure.
okay, well, I can't do this. And I remember thinking, well, my mom was driving me to one of these summer band rehearsals, and I was just all pissed off. Clarinet, I'm going to just switch to the drums.
Oh boy.
And
that'll show them.
because I liked rhythm stuff.
Sure.
And then I remember my mom saying, well, why don't you just, think about it for a while and blah, blah, blah. And this, I don't know if she said it because she was being honest, which I would assume yes, or she just didn't want drums in the house. Could have been a little bit of both.
Sure.
But I remember sitting in the band rehearsal that day and looking behind me and seeing, as you're well aware, just a line of kids leaning up against the back wall doing nothing except for like two of them going.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, this doesn't look like,
And I was like, well, at least I'm doing something.
Yeah, that is true.
So I stuck with the clarinet, and then in sixth grade, so that was the summer of fifth grade. So sixth grade, in the middle, we had the sixth grade band, which was different than seventh and eighth grade band. Sixth grade band, I switched to bass clarinet. And I don't even know if I asked to or if the guy just said, hey, you're going to be playing this, which immediately was cooler because it kind of looked like a saxophone.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
had
yeah.
the curve
You're
thing.
getting there.
And I remember like the first thing when I brought it home, I showed my parents. I was like, check this out.
Oh, Jaws, yeah. Here we go.
Because it went whoa, as opposed to it's just the sound was deeper and richer. And then that year we had like a band fundraiser or something, like a spaghetti dinner, in the cafeteria / auditorium thing. And all the band kids were waiters, so you're going around and giving your parents their spaghetti and trying not to spill stuff on them. And then the little plastic accordion divider thing, that they have.
Oh, yeah, to make it,
So all of a sudden that opened up, and there was the 7th and 8th grade jazz band, which I didn't know existed.
And they're playing the theme from Jaws, the whole ensemble.
I don't recall what they were playing. I just remember being like, kind of dumbstruck, like what the hell is that? And I'm looking, and they're playing this cool stuff, and there's like saxophones and drums.
That's where you're headed.
Piano player, and I was like, I don't see clarinets in there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's my buddy Jamie and Russ and that blah, blah, blah. I didn't even know it existed. I was kind of
just like that. The
the
wall opens and
so, and I was like, that's why am I not in there? I don't see clarinets. That's why I'm not in there.
Sure.
So
you just broke the clarinet over your knee, just went home.
Almost.
Yeah.
So somehow, and I don't recall the process, I just remember showing up in 7th grade with a saxophone. And the band director going, oh, you're playing saxophone now? And I was like, yeah.
And he just said, fine.
And he was like, okay.
And you thought you couldn't have just decided for yourself.
So
that's funny.
So fast forward, right? Now, obviously, I took to the saxophone. I was, trying to figure stuff out on my own. I was, I didn't. It was weird. I was into like, okay, I need to learn this the way the book says to do this. And
Sure.
But at the same time, I was trying to figure out like yakety sax and listen to Bill Haley in the comments and that kind of stuff, and going, hey, this is a saxophone solo, and trying to figure that stuff out. So then, but my goal was when I got into 8th grade, I knew that the high school, Guilford High School, had a decent jazz band. I was like, I want to get into the jazz band. So what do I got to do to get into the jazz band? And so they had a band meeting for incoming freshmen that were going to be in the band program. So we went, and he's talking about the whole thing, and the marching band and the concert band, and I'm like, just yeah. Let's get to the jazz band part. So of course, any questions? I was like, what do I got to do to be in a jazz band? Well, it's a good idea if you start taking private lessons. I was like, great. My neighbor played clarinet, was studying, and so my parents called him. Hey, who's his teacher?
Yeah.
Does he also teach saxophone? Yeah, he does. Okay, great. So 8th grade, I started taking private saxophone lessons with this guy, and in retrospect, I wish I took lessons from him later, because he was like, in my mind, he was the epitome of the dude you'd see in the corner.
Yeah.
Play, he had the beret and the kind of the lazy eye thing.
Right.
Played when he winked. Yeah. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's.
But
totally,
at the
I can't
time, I
wait
was
to be
still going.
decrepit. What do I have to do to become decrepit like this guy?
And I remember he was the one who first played some real jazz for me. I forget what tune it was, but it was a Miles Davis thing, and it was something beboppy, ding dang ding dang ding ding. He's like, you hear this? That's the quarter note. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So I started studying with him because I want to get in the jazz band. That was all I wanted to do. And then I think I studied with him 8th grade and my freshman year. Maybe freshman and sophomore year. And then it got to a point, and to his credit, he's like, look, you're kind of getting beyond what I can show you.
Oh, cool.
Saxophone-wise, because he was mainly a clarinet player.
Oh, I see.
He was a jazzer. He was a jazz head. He knew all about that kind of, that vibe and that stuff. But from a technical, how to really play this instrument well standpoint, he shipped me off to somebody else, which was a credit to him as opposed to, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, and I've actually kind of adopted that since I became a teacher.
Sure.
Private lessons or whatever. Like we talked about before, I can kind of play the bass a little bit. I can, I don't. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Sure.
Same thing with drums. I kind of know how I'm supposed to hold the sticks.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not supposed to be tense or whatever.
Sure.
But if someone were to say, "Hey, can you give my kid drum lessons?" I'd be like,
right.
I mean, I can show you how to go boom, bap, boom, boom,
Yeah,
bap.
yeah, sure.
But beyond that,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I hear you.
Same thing with piano. Like, I know where the notes are and I can bang out some chords,
sure.
but I wouldn't
Yeah.
feel comfortable.
No, I'm the same way. I play.
Here's my 5-year-old. Teach them how to play piano.
Yeah, they're always, because I play bass with my kids, and can barely, I mean, I have my things, but there was like, you teach bass? I'm like, nope. No.
Yeah. No. So that's leave it to the people that have studied it. And it's a bit of a, not to totally change the subject, but that concept is a little bit of a sore spot for me, because I've had saxophone students that have studied with like their band director, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I went through a bit of the music ed process when I went to UConn as a music ed major, and then midway through I just really decided I didn't like school.
Oh, okay.
So I could see like, okay, I'm in school to get out of school to go back into school to be in school. And then while I'm in school, I'm going to have to go back to school again to learn how to be more in school. I just didn't like school enough for that much school.
Wow. I don't blame you.
But I like the teaching thing, the private thing, and having a kid like get it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as a band director, you need to know just enough about all of the instruments to get the kids going.
Sure.
And try to make some semblance of a proper sound on the thing. And it's great.
Sure.
But not all band directors are created equal. So not all of them are going to dive far enough in to the little idiosyncrasies of things.
Sure.
Some of which are rather basic to like say there's a certain instrument that you're going to play, and there's like one basic thing that if you were told would make everything easier. Saxophone is kind of one of those things. Like you were talking earlier about the mouthpiece and the clarinet and the saxophone. They're similar enough that you can get going, but they're also vastly different in that if you try to play a saxophone with a clarinet embouchure, it's not really going to work that great. You're going to have some problems.
Okay.
If you try to play the clarinet with an official saxophone embouchure, not really going to work that great. You're going to have some problems. So I've had a couple of students over the past 20-something years I've been teaching who have come in and, they have this one particular issue. Well, here's the issue. The low notes on a saxophone. A lot of kids have a tough time playing the low notes on a saxophone because this is too tight. They're squeezing the thing closed.
Yeah.
And it goes higher. They try to go down. And because of whatever they're doing with the reed, it wants to go up.
Sure.
So, blah, 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 and it happens all the time.
So you have to relax.
All you have to do is go and let the reed flop the way it wants to.
And it'll go. Yeah,
and blah, 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 all of a sudden it comes out.
Yeah.
Easy.
Sure.
But I've had these kids that come in, either they're starting to take lessons with me, or I'll happen to be teaching and somebody comes into said store, whichever one I was, or whatever, and I'll get the knock on the, hey, can when you have a second, can you check this saxophone out, see if it's working all right? So I'll play it. Yeah, it's fine. And the kid and their parents are looking at me like,
never heard those notes.
And they're looking at him. Well, his teacher said that there's something wrong with the saxophone. Because I was like, okay, well, what's the problem?
Not enough didn't get that far in saxophone to open their jaw.
I was like, so what? Why did they say that? What was the issue? Oh, well, the low notes don't come out. Oh.
Yeah.
So in a couple of instances, I was like, do you have like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'd bring the kid in, sit down. I was like, all right, let me play. And they go, and
Right.
I said, hey, try this. Just
yeah.
That's the beauty about the saxophone. It's like the dumbest instrument of all.
I always thought so.
You don't have. I mean, there's the running gag is it's the easiest one to play poorly.
Really?
Which is kind of true, to an extent.
That's interesting.
Because you don't really have to do anything out of the ordinary, other than if you can blow bubbles.
Sure.
Or shoot a spit wad.
Sure. Yeah.
You can get a fairly decent sound on the saxophone initially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But when we try to over control it, like kind of what you need to do on a clarinet, there's some different things that are not just a normal.
Not going to work with the saxophone.
It just makes it not really work right. So if you you're just like this, you put the thing in your mouth and go.
Yeah.
And it works.
And open up that whole bunch of notes
So I tell the kid, all right, just do that and just blah. All right, now plop your fingers down and blah, 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 blah. And they look at me and they look at their mom or their dad and they look like, I never got those notes out before. I'm like, and it's like, these poor kids.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
That one simple thing.
Yeah.
But it happens,
But you never know. There could be a band director who plays more saxophone and got to that point.
There are several. There are just the other ones that are like what we were talking about before. They that's good enough.
Sure.
Whereas, hey, can you teach bass lessons? Me? No. Well, you play the bass. Well, but no.
Well, but that's why they're coming to you. That's why they're getting private lessons.
Yeah, and it happens. It's just that's
which is what they told you. You got to take private lessons if you want to. Because the band director can't tell you maybe everything or every instrument,
Yeah, I mean in this case it was just to get in the jazz band.
Yeah.
It'll show us you're really motivated if you're actually taking lessons.
Well,
because they had kind of a standard that they wanted.
Sure.
Which makes sense. Actually, my high school band director was a really good sax player, which he never really stated, but we all kind of found out how you find out things like.
I guess.
From the band about wow, he did that.
Wow. He was in prison? No, just
right. Anyway, so circling back to finish my clarinet story. Right, like I said, the middle school band director was the one who said, "Oh, why don't you play clarinet, and then later you can switch and be able to play both." So fast forward to I'm in my whatever year at UConn in the jazz ensemble. Every year UConn has high school jazz festival, so a bunch of high schools come up, and my high school was one of the ones that always went. So I went up when I was in high school, and they would come up, while I was still there. And at this point, the middle school director had since moved on to become the high school band director. And this one particular year, they had opened up the dress rehearsal, because we always had a guest artist with the Yukon band, guest artist / clinician. So there's one year we opened up the dress rehearsal, I think it was like the Friday night before the festival thing on Saturday, to anybody who wanted to come up and watch us rehearse with the clinician, the guest artist. So there was one song out of the 3 or 4 that we were playing. There was maybe 10, 15 seconds of a clarinet part. Right. So when we're playing the tune, and that part comes up, I put my sax down, pick up the clarinet.
Oh, boy.
As soon as I pick up the clarinet, in walks my high school jazz band, Guilford High Jazz Band, with the director who was my middle school guy who said blah, 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 blah. And I just started laughing in my head, So I played the thing. And then I went up to talk to him afterwards. First thing he says, "See, I told you." Oh, God. I was like, yeah, you were right, but still, I hate this thing.
Yeah. That's funny.
Anyway.
Just for that one moment.
It was really good. So anyway, that's my how I started the saxophone story.
Yeah, that's cool. And you're kind of doing your own thing at the same time. Playing along the records, figuring it out.
Not that this is a similar story, but if I remember correctly, how you actually started playing drums.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Tell me if I get this right. You were taking bass lessons.
I was.
As a youngin'.
Yep.
And your bass teacher said, "Hey, why don't you come and sit in at this gig and play a couple tunes or something?"
Yeah.
So Mom and whoever went to this thing, and he said, "Hey, yeah, come on up." And you went and just sat behind the drums.
Yeah. He's like, "What are you doing?"
You didn't even contemplate playing bass.
Yeah.
So I just find that kind of fascinating. So had you played drums before?
Yeah.
Like just messing around? Or?
Well, you know how it is. Okay. Yes. I guess I noticed the drums like way first was just hitting stuff, trying to figure out what the sounds were that I was hearing on records. I was always hitting stuff. And then it's kind of so weird. So my family's from Pittsburgh, and we would go back, maybe once a year, twice a year, go back to Pittsburgh. And I have an uncle who had drums. So I would play drums like an hour a year. Like I would just be, there's drums. And for whatever reason, I'd get on the drums and would try to figure stuff out. But I never thought of myself as a drummer because nobody ever showed me anything.
Right.
And then, so I had just minor little experience on drums, just like, an hour a year. Maybe 2 hours if we went back for Christmas. Too,
right.
Whatever. And then right around that same period, a neighbor down the street's older brother got drums. So I kind of fascinated with it, but I didn't know I was doing it right. And then once I saw Gene Simmons, I started noticing bass. And I thought, like you would think that you have to know how to play it. Like you got to take lessons to play bass.
Right.
I already taught myself how to play drums accidentally, but didn't think I was doing it legit.
Yeah.
Because nobody was like, no, it's not, it's right or it's wrong. I would just fool around. And then said, now I'm going to get serious and take bass lessons. I was terrible at bass. So I don't know why. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why that happened. I only took a couple of bass lessons. So I don't know why I would have went right to the drums. Yeah, and then he's like, "You play drums?" I'm like, "I don't know. I guess so." I just felt like, yeah. Or I think, anyway, before that, the bass teacher got up and I hopped on the drum kit that was in the room, the lesson room, and he goes, "You play drums?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "Yeah, you do." So, yeah, that's what I thought he meant. I don't know.
So now, at that point, did you stop the bass lessons?
I did. I wasn't that good.
Lessons,
I'm still not good. I can't. I have a hard time remembering the names of the strings or the notes or making sense of it.
That's okay.
Well, kind of. And then drums came easier, and being, a lazy kid like anybody, it was a path of least resistance.
Right.
And I thought, I'm already doing this. And then my first drum teacher was Vic, and he was like, "You're doing everything wrong," which I was, because I'm left-handed. I played all wrong. And he straightened me out on some things and then just said, "Nah, you're going to have this or that problem when you get further along, but you sound good, just stay with it. So I play lefty, righty, whatever.
Right.
And then just kind of, he straightened me out, and I took it from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is funny. I guess in my mind, I was already a drummer. I already was, but I didn't know it. I wanted to be a bass player, but I just didn't have the talent. But I had the talent to be a drummer.
Right.
I didn't know that I was already doing it.
Yeah.
It was more instinctive.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned the having trouble like remembering the names of the strings or
Yeah.
whatever, because I'm fascinated by like I've had some, even there's a guy I play in a band with now who he's a solid guitar player, but he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, I know.
And,
It's always interesting.
If we try to talk in terms of, all right, so it's 4-bar phrase,
Yeah.
and then he's like, I just know I do this 14 times, and then I switch to the other thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating because like,
Who is this, by the way? Do I know him?
no.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
I mean, he
Yeah.
he
Some people are
knows
like that.
he knows a little. He's he's
Yeah.
asking questions and
Yeah.
whatnot, so he's not just like, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But and just that like concept of I'm just going to pick up this instrument, I know nothing about it
Yeah.
or how to play it or
Well-
and just kind of figuring it out. Like for me, I mean, I bought a drum set and I was but I had already been like educated,
Sure.
musically since like fifth grade or whatever. But
And also drums. It's just rhythm. If you can subdivide a measure into 16 parts, you're done. And we'll talk about triplets later, and that's it. There's nothing else.
So, I had the knowledge, theoretically, like background wise, whatever.
Yeah.
I could hear,
Sure.
I knew
Sure.
which parts were what.
Yeah.
So, and at one point I did take guitar lessons for a little while. I think I was like in middle school or something. And I kind of remember that a little bit. I just remember he told me how to play bar chords and stuff. And all you needed these 4 or these 3 chords. And I was like, oh, cool. And,
Yeah.
But, hanging out with some of my friends in high school were like great musicians,
Yeah.
but knew nothing about music, like theory or anything like
Yeah.
that. But they could play their asses off,
Yeah. Well,
and, shredding like
Yeah.
a couple of metalheads that I was hanging out with.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Oh, what was that? I don't know.
I don't even know. Yeah.
But it just, it's
Yeah.
like, how do you remember, the concept of like, I'd like to say I'm fairly organized to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So having that,
Sure.
being able to describe it,
Sure.
okay, it's A, B, C, and then it does this, and then, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me, as opposed to, I push this button, and then I put,
Yeah.
like, but I can kind of understand it learning that way on like the drums or even like bass or to a certain extent guitar. But for some reason I can't translate that over too much to like learning like a wind instrument like saxophone or something like that.
Yeah.
Probably just because it helps so much to know,
Yeah.
okay, here's this button makes this
Sure.
letter.
Sure.
So just remember,
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and I'm not even talking about being able to read
yeah, right.
the stuff.
Or improvise solos or whatever.
Just knowing, okay, this starts on a C. Okay,
Yeah.
which one is that again?
Sure.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
And I've had,
Crazy.
there's a couple like some Facebooky group things that like saxophone something, and there's always these back and forths of, I want to start the saxophone. I don't know anything about music. I don't blah blah blah. And there's people that immediately chime in with, well, you got to start with find a teacher, and they're going to show you how to read the notes and get this book and this and that and the other thing. And my take on it is, especially like with an adult student, if they just want to play the thing,
Sure.
just play the thing.
Yeah.
I can show you, okay,
Sure.
you got to know when I ask you to play a B, which button to push, but you don't need to know what it looks like on a piece of paper to be able to play it.
True. Yeah, you split the difference.
Yeah.
Ideal,
and
depending on the student.
Yeah, if they want to learn that stuff,
Yeah.
great. But there's a few.
I'm the same way. I try to get them to make music right away, so if
Yeah.
they're interested. And I go, in case you're curious, let me just run this by you. And
Right,
sometimes they get it or they don't.
And but it's interesting, and I guess some of these teachers they have enough students or whatever that they can maybe afford to turn down people that don't want to learn how to read. You know, because there's a couple of I don't know any of them personally, but just from these little comments or whatever on this
They're like, I won't teach a student unless they're willing to whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, really? But if they just want to play, why not just let them play? Show them how to produce a tone correctly and the proper technique, so they don't like injure themselves or something by stress related something. But let them play.
Yeah, why not?
But again, not every teacher is good for every student, and vice versa.
Do you know? Is there any? Because I would think from probably an ignorant point of view, you don't have to know anything to play drums at all. As a matter of fact, I don't even know how many drummers don't know anything. I personally, I did kind of both. I didn't know, but I did find as I went that learning how to, like knowing drum theory is easy. Real quick, for people who don't know, if you're going to read legit music, maybe not saxophone actually, is kind of in between, but melody, harmony, rhythm. Those are the three things that make up music.
Yeah.
With drum music, you're reading 1/3 of those things. You're learning, and then also there's
with drum set.
With drum
music,
set,
unless you're Terry Bozzio or something.
Right, but I'm just saying it's not that hard. I don't think it's that hard. It's not that intimidating. But I just look at it like, well, I felt like the more that I understood, it did help my playing and getting my kind of act together. Yeah. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have I felt like it helped me. So I was just telling my kids, like, you don't have to know any of this. You really don't. But you just give it a try, though, just speaking from experience, because I was a natural. I had a lot of natural ability. But when I started getting it together a little bit more, my playing took off. So it's like, just try it. Yeah, it doesn't change the way you play either, contrary to what people would
some
think.
people are like, oh, music theory stunts your whatever.
No.
But
I don't think so.
Along those lines, it depends on who is accepting that information if they choose to let it affect their playing. Two interesting examples of that. One is a bunch of years ago, one of my sax students, he was a middle school kid, and he would ask. He wasn't necessarily the greatest saxophone player in the world, but he was interested in music, right? And he would ask questions. I remember one of the questions was, if you're going to write a song, does it have to be like this 1, 4, 5 chord progression thing? And I'm like, no,
of course not,
absolutely not. I think I played him this original band that I was in at the time, that wacky prog rocky thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And to my ears, there was no discernible chord progression whatsoever, but it still sounded cool, So I was like, no, it totally doesn't have to be that. And he also came in one day, he wanted to learn the guitar solo on saxophone for Stairway to Heaven. I was like, great, let's try it.
Yeah.
And the other example I have of that, of someone to an extent letting it affect them, is the bass player that I play with in the Auburn mode. He, writes songs constantly.
Yeah.
Right, and has been since, probably since he started noodling around on guitar, And he went to school for like composition. I'm not sure if it was I think it was more like a rock poppy kind of thing. And then, that's when he learned all the rules and found out everything he was doing wrong. And he for a while he's like, oh my God, I can't do this because that's wrong, and I can't do that because that's. And then after a while he realized, well, the heck, I like the way that sounds. Why can't I do it?
Wow.
But if I remember his story correctly, it did kind of stunt his creativity for a while
Until he got
until
back
he
in
just
sync.
figured out. He was like, yeah, okay, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
the rule says I shouldn't do this, but I like that sound.
Oh, well,
You know.
yeah.
So
You never know.
some of it is, well, not a lot of it. I would say most of it is kind of subjective. I mean, yeah, the rules are set up for a certain thing, and it does help you if you're completely clueless.
Yeah.
If you have this little guide to go by,
Yeah.
that can help to a certain extent.
Sure.
But if you have the sounds in your head and you like
Well, you know.
what is coming out.
Well, you know. I don't know if it's. I don't want to run out of time.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
No, but like all I was going to say is, you know, I don't know if it's different being a sax player because you're more likely to play melodies, but to be a drummer, to be an accompanist type of musician, you know, I have to accompany. So I have, you know, a lot of respect for the composer, you know, or the writer of a thing because I generally don't write stuff. I need a song to play.
Right.
So, you know, I look at it like, you know, people that can pull songs out of thin air, that's a skill. I mean, I have my moments, but that's not my skill. I'm not a writer by trade. So I just look at it like, you know, whatever it takes to create the music that accompanist can, you know, accompany you on. That's fine. I don't need a song to follow the rules in order for it to be a song.
Yeah.
You know, because I just look at it like, hey, if it's good and you're pulling it out of thin air, you know, it's all good. I was watching, I'm on a third eye blind bender, which I never really thought about that much, particularly except I like it. You know, the drummer's really good and I kind of dig it. And I watched an interview with the main dude on Rick Beato, and they were like, because a lot of times the form is odd, but not in a bad way. And it was kind of, you know, they're kind of getting at like why. And he's highly creative. He's kind of a little bit nutty. And he's like, well, I don't write the form. I write the lyrics. The lyrics come first. And if there's 3 extra bars to finish the melody that I'm thinking of, and it just goes like that. And you're that's why their music is slightly unique because it's the other way around.
It's not cookie cutter. Whatever,
right.
Yeah.
But if you just said it's got to be 8 bars and 16 bars and whatever, and then you fit the lyrics to da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and it sounds like everybody's song.
Yeah.
And then Third Eye Blind, you're like, oh yeah, I guess it is different enough. And he's like, yeah, because it's free. I set myself free. It's like, oh yeah,
and
cool.
And you won't, if you don't know, you won't notice. You know what I mean?
Right, because it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's
So,
still
like-
it's not like far out music, but
Yeah.
it's different
No, but
enough that
it's-
it draws you in.
Like if you're not thinking in terms of, or I should say, if you are thinking in terms of, I'm used to these,
Sure.
4-bar phrases or whatever.
Sure.
Then you hear that, then you have a couple of reactions. One is, oh my God, that didn't follow the rules. If you're that type of person, or you could go, you notice that that's what happened, and you go, oh, okay, that's probably why this sounds the way it does. And I dig that.
Yeah.
Right. But if it sounds, to me anyway, if it's regardless of phrasing or whatnot, if it sounds, I guess the word I'm looking for is organic. Like,
Right.
if it doesn't sound contrived,
Right.
I probably would know. Actually, great example. I just recently did a recording session a couple weeks ago. I got a call from a friend of mine who runs a studio. He's like, hey, I have a guy in here. He wants a sax solo on this tune. Can you come and do it? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And it's a guy that I've worked with before. And, I don't know his background as far as education musically or whatever, but he writes decent tunes. They sound good. And so they sent me the track beforehand. I'm listening to it a couple of times. I wasn't actively charting out anything. I was just listening to it. Oh, here's where the solo comes up, and okay, yeah, cool. So I'm listening, and passively, a couple of times through, didn't really notice anything.
Yeah.
Weird. And then I was like, all right, do a little more in-depth homework. So I went to go play through it. Okay, here's the solo. So I'm thinking, on the whole, so I'm playing, blah, and all of a sudden the solo ended.
Yeah. What happened?
Wait a minute. I wasn't finished with my idea yet.
Yeah.
But and it turns out it's instead of, I was thinking, 8
Sure,
bars or
sure.
something like that, and it's a 6. He's got a 6-bar phrase in there, but it didn't like slap you in the face that it was
Right.
weird.
Right, but
or
only if you're
odd.
going to sit down and.
I didn't notice it till I was actually, in there. Oh,
Yeah.
and it was kind of cool because I had to change. I was just not. I don't want to say I was on autopilot, but the majority of stuff that I've played in the past, however many years, has been.
Sure.
Not, I don't mean to say it's been boring because it's been
but more likely
that
to
phrasing,
follow.
but
Yeah.
I hear
you.
it was. I was like, oh, okay, well that's cool. I gotta shift, my thing around a little bit and
Why not?
figure out how to navigate that and not make it sound like I was, baffled by it or something. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Well, yeah, no, it does. There's no
yeah,
right,
it's
right
just,
way or wrong way
you
to do these
didn't.
things.
Another quick example of that is.
Oh shit!
Oh,
I spilled my coffee all over my phone. All right, hold on. Yeah, I did that yesterday too. I went out to eat with Paul.
well, at least you
Spilled
learned your
my-
lesson.
Spilled my entire drink all over everything. Yeah. At least I learned my lesson. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so similar thing, like, these like odd time signature kind of things, like Salisbury Hill.
Sure.
When I was the band I had in high school, or I should say the band I was in, wasn't mine. But anyway, that was like, oh yeah, let's try to play this tune. We like it. So we're trying to play through it, and we were all ignorant to the fact that it was in 7.
Yeah.
So we're trying to play through it, and it just kept falling apart, and we couldn't really figure it out, like why it was falling apart. And then at some point we actually, okay.
Yeah.
But when you're
Especially-
just listening to it, enjoying the tune,
because the melody,
yeah,
just following the melody.
you're not thinking that way, which I think is a great thing.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey, we're gonna run out of time.
Like those, real quick, the old, like you're talking about following the lyrics, like
Yeah.
the old blues tunes, whatever.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just, whatever.
We get there when we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lightning got. What's that old story? Lightning Hopkins.
Yeah.
When's the chord? Lightning's going to change when lightning wants to change. You know what I mean? Okay. You have to come back because we don't know where you're playing. We don't know what you're doing. We didn't talk about any of that. We only got up to 7th grade.
True.
So you definitely got to come back.
I would love to.
Yeah, why not? You know?
Can I? Speaking of where I'm playing, can I make a quick plug
Yes, of
for,
course.
For was it next week? The 18th? No. What's
No.
next?
Next week is
Tuesday the 13th.
could be. That's probably 2 weeks.
Yeah. Portland Riverfront Park.
Oh, hey, right here in Portland,
The
Connecticut.
70s project.
Oh yeah, with John Powell.
Yes.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yes.
cool.
Tuesday the 13th.
What are you gonna wear? Kaka Smurf outfit? Remember?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I still got pictures.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
We'll save that one for next time.
yeah, that's cool. All right, yeah. Real quick, Desert Island albums. Give me 5. Hurry up.
Ever since this started, I knew you were going to ask that question.
Oh,
and
good.
I've been formulating the list, and
And
it
it doesn't
always
work
changes.
like that. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. And even when you earlier today, 20 minutes ago, when you said, "Hey, can you do
You
this?"
already started.
I started. No. Atomic, Count Basie.
Oh, okay.
King's X, Dogman.
Sure.
There's a number of Harry Connick Jr. records.
Yeah.
So I might have to throw 2 of them on there because
Sure.
it kind of changes gears.
Yeah.
So Red Light, Blue Light. It's one of the earlier ones. Kind of big bandy jazz
Yep.
thing, but
Yeah.
a little quirky because
Sure.
it's Harry Connick Jr. and he
Yep.
he's always puts a little on the tunes. And then one of his earlier quote unquote funk records,
Sure.
She.
Okay.
I think I played you a couple of tunes
Yeah,
off of
yeah.
that one. So what is that? 3,
Yeah,
4? Jeez. Probably Harry Belafonte at Carnegie Hall.
Wow. Oh, cool.
It's fond memories of
Yeah.
listening to that with my folks. We
Yeah.
actually saw him at the Bushnell in New Haven.
Oh, that's
a
cool.
bunch of years.
He just died this year.
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
then-
of course,
then it's just
now
whatever.
there's going to be a flood of,
Yeah.
what about this one? And what about that one? And,
Yeah. Of course. Well, That's why you'll have to come back.
Right.
You know, desert island food. You know, what could you be good with all the time?
Pizza or cheeseburgers?
Sure. Okay.
Not necessarily cheeseburgers, but burgers.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Name a show, concert that you've seen that changed your whole thing in one shot. Or most memorable, or whatever.
Well, most memorable is an interesting one.
That had the most impact on you, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah, I to an extent, I guess it had an impact. But as far as memorable goes,
Sure.
so I'll do this quick.
Yeah.
There's two. One that actually had an impact and was memorable probably because
Sure.
of the impact, and one that was just memorable because of the
Yeah.
spectacle that it was.
Oh, boy.
So early 90s, I met up with a buddy of mine from high school. He was in college in Boston at the time. He's like, dude, you got to come up this weekend. There's this thing going on. It's like, 9 bands for
Sure.
$6 or
Yeah,
something.
sure.
It was a bunch of ska bands playing. I don't remember the club, but I remember it was the Mighty Betty Boss Tones were there. I think Alien Ant Farm was there.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't remember much about the show other than this one particular spectacle was, there was the mosh pit going and whatever, and we were kind of watching from afar. And this dude walked in who was dressed like Max Headroom. Remember
yeah,
the
yeah,
MTV,
sure.
with the
Yeah.
just the
Yep.
like gray suit and the bleach blonde hair or whatever.
Yep.
So this guy, and he's tall, lanky. He walks in with the briefcase, literally, and he walks up to the mosh pit, just casually, puts the briefcase down, like right outside the mosh pit, and then proceeds to just go for like a song, just going
goes
crazy.
Nuts. Yeah.
And then just grabbed his
Picked up
briefcase and then walked away. It was just so. I don't
He
know.
just had to get his freak on.
That was probably one of the most memorable ones. Another most memorable one, while I was playing, it was the first time I did a stage dive. It was a hip hop band that I was playing with, and I forget where we were playing, but for whatever reason, it was the thing, and not everybody in the band was doing it, but it kind of came around to me, and the band leader was like, "Go ahead." I was like, "All right,
Okay. Here I go.
There I go." Most impactful. That's a tough question because it's like I'm bad at these people go to a concert and they go, "Oh man, that was life changing."
Yeah.
It takes a while for that shit to sink in for me.
Yeah.
Like years go by and I go, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
that was fucking incredible."
Yeah.
Right. So a couple of them. One was King's X at
Sure.
Toad's Place.
Sure.
Just because it was the loudest thing I think I'd ever heard, but a very good loud.
Yeah, sure.
And the band was so fucking tight.
Yeah.
It was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
It was so good. I don't know if it was like life altering or whatever, but that was just like, holy shit, these guys are incredible.
Yeah.
That and recently, actually, I think you've heard me talk about this Norwegian artist Bernhoft,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't know he's Norwegian listening to his stuff, kind of blue-eyed soul, whatever. He did a solo gig recently up in Boston. He does a lot of loop stuff or whatever, and he's just something about his vibe. He's a great player. There was, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. You just sit there and go, it just feels so good. He's a great singer. He's a good entertainer. There's not really much shtick involved.
He's just doing it.
Yeah. And then there's any number of jazz
Sure.
shows I've seen, either friends of mine or professional, go to so-and-so jazz club and see,
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough that I've been in that scene, witnessing a lot of greatness from that side of things, in that realm.
Sure.
One of them, again, getting back to I didn't get it at the time, but later on it kind of kicked in, was saw Joe Lovano, a tenor saxophone player, jazz guy. I don't know, just for those who don't know. I forget who he was playing with, but it was at the Village Vanguard, and it was just kind of on another whole other level of, you know. And it's not like he did a lot of saxophone pyrotechnics or whatever. Which those are cool, like the whole Michael Brecker thing. It's awesome, and like, holy crap, how'd he do that? But this was something else, and it took a while. Like afterwards, I was like, wow, that was deep.
Yeah,
I didn't really know what was going on.
You
know, musically or harmonically or whatever. But it
cool. Hey, we got to fly.
Okay,
we're gonna run over. Come back. You know what I mean?
You got my number?
We need more info. Yeah. When are you here next time? We'll work it out on a day when you're here.
Yeah. I'm usually here Wednesdays.
Okay. But today was different.
Today was different because I had some emergency things I had to take care of for a friend for tomorrow.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, we're going to go. I'm pressing the button.
Push the button.
Chip Fenney was here.
I was.
Yeah, man. And he will be here again someday.
Next time we'll do a little dance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Put him on the blue screen. He'll be dancing on a volcano or whatever. John Peck, I don't even know why. I don't know what that means. John Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School, Music Dance, Views down to Portland, come over to Bridge Group, park in front of the thing. All right, be on the show with me. Tell your friends. Like and subscribe. What else? Have your own podcast here in our beautiful studio. Dave will tell you how. We also have merch. Check it out. Maybe we'll put a link. Maybe. Isn't that what people do? Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. I'll see you.
Yeah, man.
That is all.
If you'd like to start your own podcast, give us a call at Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance. Our professionally designed podcast space is here for all your recording needs. Rent out our studio to do interviews with up to 4 people, to record audiobooks, social media content, and all other recorded material. Our rentals include a private studio along with our professional-grade podcasting equipment, and we can customize your output to whatever your needs are. We also have green screen capabilities, which will expand to video capability if you so wish. So check us out here at convalley.net/podcast.